Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mindel archives. In the previous program, we discussed about Pirkei Avos, that Avos, why it's called Avos. Parents have to be a living example. And also, we read the Rebbe's letter, how we have to mix ethics together with religion. This week, I want to read to you a very short letter that the Rebbe wrote to someone. And then we will learn a lesson from this letter. Greeting and blessing. I do not know if you are aware of the fact that for reasons beyond my control, and then the Rabbi wrote doctor's orders and so on, it is now several years since all private audience have been suspended. Consequently, many prominent people who had requested an audience during this time could not be accommodated. Much to my regret, this, of course, precludes me from making any exceptions, since it would be unfair, and underlined, to those who had been refused in the past. I am therefore profoundly sorry at not being able to accede to your suggestion, especially as it is concerned a person for whom I not only have the highest regard, but to whom I also feel a sense of gratitude for his kind support to our Lubavitcher institution in your state. I might add that I am bound also by another basic tenet of our Torah, which requires us to be extra careful, underlined, in showing respect, underlined, to all, underlined, persons, including those who are less privileged in terms of stature and the like. And they too would be embarrassed if they had the feeling that they have been discriminated against. I am sure you will understand my predicament and will be able to convey my profound regrets. Now, I don't have the letter that he wrote, but it seems like he wrote that he wanted to have yichidus with the Rebbe, and this is when the Rebbe stopped yichidus. So the Rebbe says to him that he would love to do it, but he can't do it. In other words, the Rebbe doesn't show favoritism. Everybody is equal. And here I want to bring a couple short stories. When we got married, this was years after the Rebbe stopped to be Mesadik Dushin. The Rebbe used to be Mesadik Dushin, people in the early years, and by the way, only that if the mother of the Kala didn't wear a sheitel, the Rebbe I don't think would be Mesadik Dushin, and also the father had to wear a beard, but if not, he wouldn't. But anyways. So this was years later. So when I got married, before I got married, my father-in-law asked the Rebbe, since he was very close to the Rebbe, and by the way, Rabbi Chadakov, the same thing, asked the Rebbe, those two were very close to the Rebbe from the beginning years, if the Rebbe could be Mesadik Dushin by the children. So the Rebbe answered them, I don't know exactly the Loshen that my father-in-law mentioned, but he said, I would, or be glad to do, I don't remember, but how can I do it? How can I show that favoritism? In other words, I'll do to you, I have to do to everybody. That I can't. So we see how the Rebbe was very careful. Certain things that everybody should be equal. Now, another thing I want to tell you, in the Chovs, maybe in the Lameds, this was in the winter. The Rebbe Friday night, after Kabbalah Shabbos was about 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. Then the Rebbe went to his room. He stayed in his room for a couple hours. And then he walked home. It was about probably 8, 9 o'clock. The Rebbe used to walk alone. But in the back of the Rebbe, every week there were 2 different Bocharim, a few feet the back. I don't know if the Rebbe knew or didn't know. They walked in back of the Rebbe. They didn't want the Rebbe to walk alone. So the Rebbe went home. The Rebbe was going on Easter Parkway. Then he turned on the Brooklyn Avenue, and then he made a right on President Street. President and President of Brooklyn. President of Brooklyn, the 2 Bocharim were in the back, and the Rebbe, a girl stopped the Rebbe and spoke to the Rebbe. They didn't know what. Maybe 5 minutes. And then after, the Rebbe went home and the girl was walking towards them. So they asked the girl, what happened? What did you speak to the Rebbe about? So the girl said, I don't know if she was a Machan Chana girl, I don't know. She says, I asked the Rebbe, I didn't make arrangements to eat Suda Shabbos. Can I come to your house and have a meal Shabbos? So first of all, the Rebbe asked me, she said, my name? The Rebbe asked me, do you have what to eat? She says, for sure I have. I have for to eat, but I didn't make arrangements. I could go anywhere. I go to many people. I have no problem. But I didn't make arrangements. And the Rebbe says, the Rebbe asked where she's staying and all these pratim. So the Rebbe told her, believe me, or I remember the Lashon, I would take you for Shabbos. But if I take you, I have to take other people also. I cannot do that. But then the Rebbe asked again, are you sure you have what to eat? She says, that's for sure. And that's what happened. Mitzvah Shabbos, right after Havdalah, the Rebbe called in one of the maskirim and said to find out, the Rebbe told him the name and where she's staying, right away to find out where she ate and was she happy, the whole thing. I don't remember exactly, but this is what happened later. And then after the Rebbe found out, then the Rebbe went home. So here we see that the Rebbe, how we have to learn from the Rebbe that everybody is equal. If you show to one person, you have to show the same thing to other people. Now, I'll tell you another story, which I heard from Kozhe. I don't know, people that knew Kozhe, and he told over the story. Kozhe was a person that every story that he said is reliable. You know that we know that a lot of stories that we hear, even stories from the Rebbe, lav dafke, it's 100% true. And I know for a fact certain stories which I have in my archive, certain things that people were saying, and I see, I don't think it could have happened, but I don't know. But Kozhe said everything he says was true. So he used to have a lot of mices. So he told me that Chaim Lieberman, who was the Frierdiker Rebbe's secretary, and he was a ben bais by the Frierdiker Rebbe. He lived in the Frierdiker Rebbe's house. I don't know if he was married or not, but he lived this was in Russia, I think, Poland, Russia. So one day, Reb Chaim Lieberman, when he was in Eshel, in nursing home, he told this to Kozhe, that one day the Frierdiker Rebbe asked him, please tomorrow, don't hang around here. I don't know how he told him, of course he told him in a very edel eifen, a very edel. And by the way, the Frierdiker Rebbe was very careful, very edel. I think there was once a Maisa that upstairs this is a Maimer HaMuzger, that in 770, the Frierdiker Rebbe ate, with the 10 people in his table, there was Yontif, and the Bachim came to watch the way the Frierdiker Rebbe eats, and it's not comfortable to be watched the way you eat. So the Frierdiker Rebbe turns to the Bachim, and he says to them, even to Malachim, you say Tzeischem L'Sholom. Even to angels, you say, leave. That's how he used to speak. It was very edel. And they understood that they have to leave. Anyways, so I don't know how the Frierdiker Rebbe said to Reb Chaim Lieberman that tomorrow don't hang around here. What happened? Rebbetzin Chane, the Rebbe's mother, came to visit the Frierdiker Rebbe. Why? Because sie geret a shidduch between the Rebbe and Chaya Mushke and the daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So she came to speak about it. She came and she asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted the Rebbe for a son-in-law. She said, I need nothing, dowry. Years ago, they used to give dowry. And of course, a bacher like Rebbetzin Chana had, the Rebbe, it's such a special bacher, she wants dowry. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says to her, I would be glad to give you, but I have no money. And as we heard the previous programs, I don't know if you heard that when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America, he didn't have a penny in his pocket, had no money, had hatishkin geld. And he would love to do it, but he has no money. So she says to the Frierdiker Rebbe, Ober Gib, that's what I heard from Kozhe, that Chaim Lieberman told Ober Gib. He means Gib Rabbeistve. In other words, at least the Rebbe should be a Rebbe. I don't know exactly the words, but the Frierdiker Rebbe understood what Rebbetzin Chana meant. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says, how can I, when I have other children? It will be jealousy. I can't do it. And the Frierdiker Rebbe was thinking, and then the Frierdiker Rebbe said, no, Chassidim werden schon voneinander bleiben. Chassidim are going to know what to do. And he smiled. So she understood that things will be good. Here we also see that you can show jealousy. That sometimes you have to be very careful. He couldn't do it, even though the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted. So here we learn a lesson. And this lesson, as last week we spoke, this is a time of learning from Pirkei Avos, lessons that we can learn. We can learn here from the Rebbe how a person should be. We know it says in Sfarim that because of a silk shirt, we went into Golus Mitzrayim. Because Yaakov Avinu gave Yosef HaTzadik, he showed him the favoritism that Yosef, the brothers felt bad, and that's why we went to Golus. That's what it says for him. So we learn from here how we should be. When in Mitzvah Hashem, next week, we will continue another special letter from the Rebbe that we can learn a lesson. Thank you very much.